CEO Negro is denied in the first class, 6 minutes after, demitted to the commission at the time. The plane was almost lost when Junior Ramos, CEO of one of the largest technology companies in Brazil, entered the prestigious economic class corridor. Eleolho quickly stops at first class, where the passengers rest comfortably. There was always something unusual about long trips, and he prepared himself for more than one of them. However, when you look at the door of the first-class cabin, a strange feeling comes through your spine. "Excuse me, senor, you are in the wrong class." By the voice of the ship's commissioner, a woman in the early hours of the morning, as an order, without space for questions. He stopped in front of him, looking from top to bottom. Junior, surprised, ergueu uma sobrancelha. This was not the type that took complete defiance, but even more in a situation that was clearly being misinterpreted. "This is the passage of reservation number 1267. My seat is 1A, he said calmly, not knowing what to do next. "Sir, I believe that there was a deception." "Oh, sir, you must have confused the numbers," he responded to the commissioner with a nervous laugh. "You will verify again." At the commissariat, stop at the cabin information terminal, typing quickly and clearly without conviction. Junior watched the exchange of smells between her and one of the other closest police officers. It feels or discomforts not to have the feeling that there was something wrong, something that was not being said. He returned, still with a discomfortable smile, and said, "Excuse me, sir, but as you suspect, seat 1A is occupied. The sir must be in the wrong place." Junior olho for her with a surprising calm, but inside she had a fervent blood. "You're not an idiot. You're the CEO of JP Tech. That's my seat, and you're going to let me pass." The police officer's false smile faded a little, but it did not give way. "Senor, as you said, you ask for you to continue in your true class." Junior did not prove what was happening, feeling tension in the cabin increase. He looked around, and then it was when he perceived the smells of various passages in his direction. Some seemed uncomfortable, others observed with curiosity, as if they were waiting for something. He was not a man who oiled that type of confrontation. "Before we begin, I want to know where you are assisting. Please leave us comments in your city or country. I read all your comments, and I love connecting with our communities around the world. Please take the opportunity to click the download button and activate the button to receive all the news. Enter 1 to give us comments. Your support is essential so that we can achieve more information that we urgently need. Eu sou o CEO. I don't have time for this. I'm doing you a favor, please," he said, now with a more firm tom, quasi ameaçador. The police officer seemed to hesitate for a moment, but the logo went away, still maintaining that forced smile, and signaled for a security that was more in front of the cabin. And that was the moment that Junior made a decision. He turned to the security, which was now approaching, and said in a firm voice and without wanting to raise his head, "If you won't let me pass, you will call my lawyer now, and you will lose your job in less than 24 hours. The security hesitated, clearly nervous, but he didn't know how to react. Everyone was talking about what was happening, and no one dared to say a word. Junior, a step forward. The police officer was paralyzed for a second. He has no doubts. She had made a mistake in julgá-lo. The tension in the cabin increases. The sound was heavy, and it was like the time stopped. You might hear the noise of a light, offensive breath from the police station, or the sound of a telephone ringing discreetly from somewhere, and the murmur of restless conversation. In time, Junior returned to the police station again. His expression was serious and without space for negotiation. "Asha, are you in a position to challenge me? What else do you want? What kind of executive class is there to come here? That's not going to happen." A commissaria ficou without words. She knew that the situation was beyond her control. Junior had no limits of patience, and he already knew, by looking at his eyes, that he was not jumping. Junior waited. What would happen next did not depend more on him. And then, 6 minutes later, the inevitable event occurred. Chapter 2, or Immediate Failure. The ship's commissioner, now visibly tense, looked directly for Junior and had a step forward. It was not more about a class error or a confusion of seats. It was about something much bigger. She has been challenged in front of everyone, and in those situations she knew that she needed to maintain authority, custas or qui custas. You have to ask for the gentleman to retire from the first class and settle into the economic class, she said, her voice firmer, quasi as an order. Junior not piscu. He was in a point without a moment ago. It was not just a quest of respect, it was a quest of dignity. I asked for you to let me pass, and you didn't find out. Now, you're going to regret it. At the commissaria, or encaru, as one attempts to measure, what was happening was serious. He could sense that she was determined not to give in, but there was something else not to forget about it. A subtle arrogance, as if it were known that Junior does not have how to operate in the system. "Are you threatening me?" he asked her, now with a hint of ridicule in his voice. "It's not a fire," Junior responded, with a chill that was almost glacial. "It's a fate. If you don't let me pass now, you're going to lose your job. You don't have an idea with what you're dealing with." He could see the other passengers watching dinner, some of them uncomfortable, others clearly in silence, without wanting to get involved. But Junior knew that the impact was already being felt. He was not just defending his seat. He was challenging a culture of veiled racism, discrimination, and prejudice that had infiltrated invisibly there. She was hardly wrong. She was becoming part of a system that julgava as people who were, and not who they really were. The commissioner, apparently defeated, made a last attempt to maintain calm. "You will chamar my supervisor," he said, just starting to turn to get angry. "No, I'm not going to need anything else," Junior responded, in a lower voice, more like an authority who seemed to take care of the entire cabin. And, as I had already predicted, it was enough for other passengers to begin to perceive the gravity of the situation. Alguém fez or gesture of hitting or cell phone, others murmurarum. But Junior was not worried about the audience. He was worried about the present moment, and more importantly, what would happen next. She had made a mistake, and now he wanted her to pay for it. Chapter 3. The Decision. The supervisor appeared in a few minutes. A man of Maya Idad, well-dressed, with a rigid and arrogant posture. He seemed like a guy who was used to dealing with difficult passengers, like he was young internally. But when I entered dinner, I saw a barnacle that was dealing with something completely different. Junior, of course, does not move when the supervisor approaches. I don't need to say anything else. The commissioner had already left the cabin, now visibly disconcerted. The supervisor faced Junior for a moment as he tried to understand the situation. "What's the problem, sir?" he asked, not knowing how to answer, but wanting to hear about Junior or what had happened. "This is being denied my seat, which is clearly in my reserve," Junior responded with a deadly calm. The supervisor ho for seat 1A. "This seat is reserved for another passage. Otherwise you may be confused." "I wasn't confused," Junior responded, his teeth widening. "Eu sou o verdadeiro dono desse assento, e você vai se arrepender de não reconhecer isso." The supervisor was ready to say something else when Junior interrupted, throwing his cell phone out of his bag and asking for his lawyer. The phone being answered was sufficient for the supervisor to be forced to act more decisively. In the end, he was not just a client, but a CEO. And one of the most powerful people in the country. The police officer, now without a charge and without an apology, was like a runner with a pale face. She knew what was ready to happen. The tension was not palpable, and everything that remained was inevitable. Junior disconnected the phone, looked for the supervisor and said, "You are going to demit her now. We have done this for you." The supervisor, visibly nervous, only stops at the commissaria and depoys for Junior. "Senor, you... I didn't know it was isso tudo." "It doesn't matter what you knew," Junior interrupted firmly. "Ela fez, or what fez, and now I'm going to pay." Com olhar pesado, the supervisor breathed out as he was trying to digest what was happening. He knew he was facing a dilemma. The ship's commissioner may have made a serious mistake, but if he admitted it in front of everyone, it would be a gesture of public humiliation that could affect the entire reputation of the company. On the other hand, Junior was not giving room for negotiation. He was firm and resolute. The tension in the first-class cabin was almost unbearable. The passages we observe in silence, some are beginning to perceive the weight of the situation. It was more than a simple misunderstanding about a seat. It was a quest of respect, power, and, mainly, of justice. The CEO of JP Tech was not willing to give in. The supervisor suddenly stopped at the police station, who was standing at the bottom, his shoulders drooping, expressing that he knew that he had no other way to escape. Vou ter que chamar o board manager, or supervisor spoke, trying to gain tempo. Junior, like the eyes fixed not home him, responded with a cutting calm. "You don't need more anything. You won't allow yourself to delay more than what you're already doing. It's not about talking more than anything. You're going to take an attitude now." The supervisor engoleu him dry. He knew that the executive before him was not exaggerating. Junior has the power to ruin every moment of every moment. In a sudden movement, the radio was pressed. There was rapid communication with the central office and the request for the onboard manager to return to the area. Junior is not mixed. He remains stationary without showing any sign of frustration, as if he is completely out of control of the situation. He had dealt with very complicated situations in his career, but it was personal. The way he treated the police, without respect, without listening to our eyes, was something that he would not be able to simply swallow. The onboard manager checks out in just a few minutes. A man of average height, grey hair, and dark eyes, as soon as possible to face any situation that arises. He approached Junior, analyzing quickly, before issuing a new challenge to the supervisor. "What's the problem here?" the manager asks in an authoritative voice. "He's denying me the seat that is in my reservation," Junior said, aiming for the seat 1A. "And it," he added to the commissaria, "me despeito logo ao embarque." The old manager stopped the commissaria, who was now visibly embarrassed, his eyes lowered. She knew that she had lost in battle. The manager then approached Junior, but in a more cautious manner. "Senor Ramos, I understand that there has been a mistake in communication, but," he began, trying to calm their tempers. "There was nothing wrong. It was not a communication error. It was pure and simple disrespect," Junior interrupted. "This functionary does not want to treat me as if it were an invisible force. This cannot be tolerated in any place, and even less so in a company that offers excellence." Or hesito board manager. He was now between the desire to maintain the company's authorities and the growing pressure of a situation that he knew would be impossible to ignore. Silence was oppressive. The passages are closely observed with more attention. That dinner was becoming more than a simple dispute over a seat. It was a demonstration of power, of resistance against a system of injustices and microaggressions. And Junior, without saying a word to anyone, had already won the respect of everyone there. Finally, the ship manager, already defeated, finally stops at the police station. "Sir, please leave your service now." The police officer's face turned pale. She breathed out, trying to control humiliation, but it was obvious that she knew what was happening. The supervisor was still in shock, not knowing how to react, but he knew that there was no way to reverse the decision. Junior olho for her, and her words were direct. "You have been warned. Now, what is going to happen is simple. You are going to come out and understand that treating someone like you are not worthy of a space in the most place in the world. You have the power to change this. But that was yours, Escolia." The commissioner did not say a word. She barely turned and walked out of the cabin without looking back. The supervisor followed suit, not wanting to answer. Junior sat calmly in his seat, 1A. He had solved everything he needed to solve. He was not there to put on a show, but to guarantee that, in his presence, he respected something that he could not challenge. Logo de Poise, or board manager, now calmer, approached again. "My apologies for what happened, Mr. Ramos. Could you help him with anything? If there is anything else you need, we are at your disposal," Junior asked the manager, making a slight gesture with me as he wanted to signal that it had already been resolved. He didn't want to talk about it anymore. What he really wanted was just to finish the trip. "It's all right, just keep going," he replied. "But if something like this happens again, you can be sure that it will not be just, or it is certain that it will be in the game." The manager, now pale, showed a discreet reverence and turned away. When the plane finally took off, Junior leaned back on the Cadera, looked at his eyes for a moment, and relaxed. The situation had been resolved, but more importantly, he had given a request that many would never have asked. To disdain someone because, for what reason, would never be an oil option. He was there to ensure that this was understood. It was the end of a battle. A junior knew that not only did he win, but he had won. Chapter 4. The Reflection of Vittoria. The plane continued on its course, cutting clouds thousands of meters high, and Junior felt the tension begin to slowly dissipate. The dinner that had been unfolded in the first-class cabin was far from normal. For him, it was not just a mistake in a word. He was not just defending his right to seat 1A. He was defending something much bigger. He was defending his dignity, or I respect that every person deserves, and above all, his identity as a leader, as a black man in a world where so many times his voices were humiliated. Elle olhou pela janela, observing the horizon that began to be tinged with golden tons as soon as the sun set. The trip continued, but it didn't work. Something had changed. He felt a mixture of relief and satisfaction. Relief to know that he had done something or that it was true. More satisfaction because, for the first time in a very long time, he felt that he had restored something that society, in its small daily doses of discrimination, was constantly trying to rob him. The commission that was demitted, now only a reminder of an injustice, was already out of the cabin, and later it would probably share 2 records of incidents that were reported to the company's leadership. For her, the lesson that Junior had taught would be hard, but necessary. He did not hate her, but he could not tolerate what she represented. A mentality that still allowed herself to treat others in a disdainful manner, as if they were minors. As Junior settled into his armchair, he felt the weight of a small victory. But at the same time, I knew that this was just a reflection of something much bigger. He knew that he was not sozinho. I knew that fighting against prejudice and discrimination in its various forms happened every day in all corners of the world. The trip continued calmly, but in effect the exchange of words and decisions would extend far beyond that. In the following days, the story began to gain strength. Videos, stories, and memes emerge on social networks, with many commenting or happening. For many, Junior Ramos was seen as a hero. His firm and unhesitant stance in confronting an injustice instantly became a symbol. Others, the most critical, see attitude as an exaggerated reaction, an acto de arrogancia. But for Junior, it wasn't about being arrogant. He tries to be intransigent with a lack of respect. In his company, at JP Tech, the repercussions were equally great. He had already faced some uncomfortable situations before, being one of the few black figures to become CEO of a very relevant company. All in all, that night on the plane seemed to emphasize or respect that he would win for 2 years. his officials from different areas will come to see him with greater admiration, not just as a well-known leader, but as someone who was willing to fight against the adversities that arose in the corporate environment or in his personal life. At midday, of course, don't go back. Reports began to emerge in various vehicles, raising questions about his experience as a black executive, about the impact that what happened had on the company, and even speculating that he had made a wrong choice to resign to the commissioner in front of everyone. But when questioned, Junior always maintains the same firm and concise stance. It's not about venganza. It's about guaranteeing that respect is a constant in any place. I don't care unless it is, he said clearly. The world seemed to be watching his every step, and somehow he knew that this situation had become a watershed in his life. It is not just about financial results or market growth. It was about representing a change in the world. For him, it was about ensuring that people like him, people who many times were treated as they were on a lower plane, had a place at the table, a place of respect. Beijing. 6 months later, the airline company announced a series